Okay, for problem set 1.2, what we have here is a shrinking photo. So now, instead of my bank account, like the last problem set, increasing, we have something that's decreasing. So a couple things we have to keep in mind is that if it's decreasing, then that means that what I'm multiplying by should be less than 1, or I need to be subtracting. So here we go. The distance from Elena's chin to the top of her head is 150 millimeters in an image, and I've taken the liberty to pre-draw Elena's beautiful picture. For a passport photo, this measurement needs to be between 25 millimeters and 35 millimeters. What we want to do is problem number 1 here. It says find the height of the image after it has been scaled by 80% the following number of times, and explain or show your reasoning. So let's take part A here, and I will do that up here in this space. We're starting with an image that is 150 millimeters tall. Now, I need to decrease that by 80%, so I need to multiply that by 0.80, and when I do that, 150 times 0.80 on a calculator is 120. Okay, now that's after scaling it down 1 time. Now I'm going to scale it down again, but notice I don't start with 150. Now I'm starting with the 120, and I'm going to multiply it again by 0.80. And when I do that on a calculator, I get 96. That is my second scale. Now for my third scale, I'm starting with the, I want to go back to blue here, starting with the 96, and I'm going to multiply it again by 0.80, and I get 76.8, and these are all millimeters. So the answer to number 1, part A, is 76.8 millimeters. Now, that was certainly a roundabout way to do this, actually multiplying it each time. So what I want to do is I want to think about what happens when I do repeated multiplication. For example, I'm going to go over here in some scratch work, and suppose I had 3, and I wanted to multiply 3 by itself 4 times. Is there a quicker way to write this? Well, it turns out there is. We use an exponent, right? So we take the base of 3, and we're going to multiply it by itself 4 times, so we raise it to the 4th power. Over here, what we did is we started with the 150, and we multiplied it by 0.80. How many times did we multiply it by 0.80? Well, we did 3 different times. So I'm going to raise that 0.80 to the 3rd power and put that in a calculator and see what I get. Because it makes sense to me that this repeated multiplication could be written as an exponent. So let's see what happens when I take the 150 and I multiply it by the 0.80 3 times. And notice I get the 76.8 millimeters. So what I've just done is I found a quicker way of writing this. So for part 2 here, instead of going through and multiplying it by 0.80, enter, by 0.80, enter, I'm going to write it this shortcut way. I'm going to take this 150, I'm going to multiply it by 0.80, but I want to multiply it 6 times. So I go to my calculator, I take the 150 times the 0.80, and I want to do that 6 times. And I get 39.32. millimeters. So for number 2, what we want to know is how many times, so we're looking for how many times would we need to scale this image by 80% for the image to be less than 35. Well, I see that 6 times gives me 39.32, so I'm guessing probably 7, but I can check that very quickly by pulling up my calculator, do the 150 times the 0.80, and I'm going to multiply it by the 0.80 7 times, and notice that brings me below the 35 millimeters. So the answer for number 2 would be 7 times. And to show that, the 150 times the 0.80 now raised to the 7th power gave me 76. Nope, it gave me 31.46. Okay, number 3. How many times would the image need to be scaled to be less than 25? Well, if 7 times gave me 31.46, let's see what 8 times would give me. So 150 times the 0.80 multiplied 8 different times in the calculator. 150 times 0.80, and we guessed 8 times, and that is not less than 25, so this is 25.17. So that's not less than 25, so I know that we would need to multiply it 9 times. And to show that, I could do the 150 times the 0.80 raised to the 9th power, because I'm multiplying it 9 times by that 0.80. And in the calculator, I would see that I would get 20.13 millimeters. So that's really all there is to this, is to recognize that up here, this repeated multiplication, repeatedly multiplying by 0.80 is the same as taking that 0.80 and raising it to the 3rd power.